Hey, what is up, everybody? Welcome back or welcome to Bitch Bet Podcast. I'm your host, April. I hope everybody is having a good start to spring because now I know I am. It's finally warming up, thank Christ, because you bitch does not do well on the cold. I'm always cold anyway, so with snow being on the ground, although I love to watch it snow, I hate the temperatures that snow brings, so I catch 22 with that. But we're finally starting to get warmer and it's starting to get sunny and really nice weather, so I'm super excited about that. Although I'm not really excited about the bugs. So I know bugs come in the springtime, so there always has to be a drawback, you know? Yeah, I hope everybody was doing well this month. I had a birthday. I got bangs. I am now deep into the playoffs of hockey season, and my schedule is fully based around game days. But thankfully, I got my husband into the sport, so he's watching all the games with me, except for last night. A couple weeks ago, he had bought us movie tickets to the Star Wars Episode 3 20th release back into theaters, and that was yesterday. And earlier in the week, when the playoffs had started, I was like, we have a game on Friday. And he goes, oh, yeah. He goes, are you not going to come with me? And I was like, no, I will, because you bought me a ticket and you really want me to go with you. But I'm not watching the movie. I'm watching my game. Because I had a privacy screen. I have a privacy screen on my phone. And I had headphones. So I was like, I'll watch the game while the movie goes. Because I've seen this movie, but I have not seen this game. We lost, but it's fine. We're still leading in the series. I figured we were going to lose at least one on the road trip, so I'm not too worried. I still feel really good about my team. If you're into hockey and your team is in the playoffs and your schedule is now based around their game schedule, let me know and who are you rooting for. Unless it's one of the teams against mine, because then we're mortal enemies. Because I'm a loyal bitch, that's for sure. I bought the girls at work flowers yesterday because one of them was just not having the best day thanks to shitty people. So we were having a good day and I was like, you know what? This day needs flowers. So I went and I got each of us a little small bouquet of flowers. And I included myself because pretty girls serve pretty flowers. And if you're listening to this and you have a pretty girl in your life, get her flowers. She's not going to be upset about it. I promise. And she'll definitely love it if you do it without her asking to get her flowers. So, smarter, not harder, gentlemen. Or ladies. I don't discriminate. It was funny because when I told my manager that I was probably going to do that, and she was like, you don't have to. And I was like, I'm aware I don't have to, but I'm going to. And she goes, well, if you do that, you're going to be setting an expectation, and I'm going to want flowers. And I was like, my dad used to get flowers for his current girlfriend. Like, I think every payday, he would get her a bouquet of flowers. So it's not outside the realm of possibilities for me. And so then I told my dad this story, and he laughed, and he goes, yeah, I used to buy her flowers all the time. And I said, I know. Speaking of my dad, that's going to be kind of the topic of this episode. This month, I'd just been really thinking about my dad and how our relationship has evolved, like, throughout the years, and especially, like, from me transitioning to being like a teenager and young adult, like a more established adult, and I'm now on my own fully, and there's, we live in different states, and kind of just how things have progressed throughout my own life. I'm just always eternally grateful for my dad, because growing up, the house that I lived in was fucking chaotic. There was 3 Aries and a Scorpio that lived in that house. And since I just had a birthday, you can guess which one I fill in. And if you listen to Smile So Much, where I had my cousin on, we would know that my dad and my birthdays are a couple days apart. So it's easy to guess which one he fills in as well. But yeah, so we had 3 Aries and a Scorpio in that house. So it was fucking chaotic all the time. With me getting really kind of into astrology and kind of noticing the differences between the different signs and how different placements kind of affect, or not affect, but like influence how you handle yourself, I guess, or just handle certain aspects of yourself. Because Because although me and my dad have the same sun sign, our moon signs are completely different. They're both water signs, which I also find funny, but they're different water signs. And also, me and my dad have the same Mercury signs as well. So the way we communicate is the same. And when I realized that, I was like, this makes so much sense as to why me and my dad never had beef when I was growing up. Like, there was times where he pissed me off, and I'm sure I pissed him off at times as well, because I was very much a procrastinator, and I still am, kind of honestly. I mean, I'm recording this episode, and it's due in 2 days, so it's still a predominant thing that I do. But we never really had fights in the sense of where, like, him and his ex-wife would have fights, and me and his ex-wife would have fights, and then me and his son would fight, and then he would fight with his son. Like, everybody else was always fighting. And then, like, the ex-wife and his son were, like, fighting each other. So, like, there was always some sort of argument or fight that was happening within the house. But, like, me and my dad were never on opposing ends. Like, we were kind of like, okay, we're good. We're solid. We're not going to, fight about this. It's really funny because we communicate the same way. So it's like we've never really had misunderstandings or conflicts in that nature. And I remember it was before we got married, but my dad had texted my husband and was like, hey, call me when you get a chance. Not around my daughter. Everything's fine here. To my husband, he started panicking because he thought like he was in trouble or he did something wrong. And then when he read me that text message, I was like, no, he literally said everything's fine. Like, he just wants to chat. And he just didn't want it to be around me. And he was like, well, he just needs to say that. I was like, he did say it. It's right there. Everything's fine here. It means there's no emergency that you need to concern yourself with. He just wants to chat. I was like, I probably would have said the same thing. So we have a lot of similarities, but then we also handle things vastly different because we do, not all of our placements are the same, but there is some overlaps, which I find completely interesting. But my dad's never really been like a combative person. Like, I can be combative. I like to argue with people. And I really like to shit talk, and I'll say things, and I can be a very combative person if I get pushed to that level, but it's not like off rip. I'll be combative unless you come at me with a certain type of attitude or a certain type of way, then it's like, okay, that's what we're doing. Say less. So, but my dad's never really been like that. Like, even when him and his ex-wife used to fight, he didn't raise his voice. He didn't yell. My dad doesn't curse. Like, he doesn't cuss. He does, but not like a whole lot. He doesn't like call names unless he's like really, really mad. He doesn't really feed the argument, I guess. Like, the most my dad would do in any argument was he would like wag his finger, or he'd point at you. Or if he was like holding something, he would use that to point at you. But like, that was the gist and like the most level or the top level that he would go. I've only really seen my dad pissed off probably like less than 5 times in my entire life. Like, he just does not get mad. And I know that he can, because we all have that capability and we all have that emotion. But like, I never really saw him get mad. And except for those few times. Whereas me, I basically wear my emotions on my sleeve, so you can always kind of get a gist of what I'm feeling. And I'm not afraid to tell somebody how I'm feeling. Because if my mouth doesn't say it, my face fucking will. Always. And vice versa. So it was interesting just how that kind of difference in our personalities kind of is. I remember when I figured out that my dad doesn't know everything. And I'm sure like every child gets to that point in their life where you're like, oh, like my dad is not, or maybe it's like not just your dad, like your parents, but mine was mainly just my dad because I refused to acknowledge his ex-wife. I mean, she wasn't really a big part of the parenting process, let's be honest here. So I would go to my dad for like all my questions of like, how does this work? Why isn't this working? Can I have some help? Like, help me figure this out type of thing. And I want to say I was like into my late teens, but not out of high school yet, around there, where I had asked my dad a question and he was like, I don't know. And it was kind of like the first time I was like, oh, like my dad doesn't have all the answers. No one really does, but as a kid growing up and you bring your parents all these questions and they always have the answer for the most part, and then it comes to a point where you're asking them a question and they have no idea what you're talking about or how to answer it. So it was just interesting having that realization of like, oh, he's just a person just like the rest of us, and he doesn't know everything, he doesn't have the answers to everything. And it didn't really change how I looked at my dad. Or maybe it kind of did because I don't know if I had him on a pedestal, but it was just like, oh, like he's just human. But me and my dad have always kind of really had a solid relationship. It kind of hit of a bit of like a rocky point, but also like not really because we would still talk very frequently, and I was never really mad at him, and he wasn't never really mad at me. By the time I moved out, my dad had been divorced for like 7 years, give or take. And he had talked to me about like him dating and stuff like that. And I was like, you do you, dude. Like, I get it. It's no big deal. And if I came out of my room one morning and some random lady was in the kitchen, like, I would talk to her and I'd feel her out and, see where it would go. But like, I was like, I'm not expecting you to get back with your ex-wife because she's a horrible person and I was done dealing with her. So you can move on with anybody else and I really won't be affected by it. Like, I get it, want to date around. That's fine. I have no big deal with that. But he never did. And I never questioned him on it. I was like, this is because frankly, it's none of my fucking business. It's his life. He's going to do what he wants with it. But then I moved out and he, not like right as I moved out, but like definitely within like the first 6 months of me moving out, he had started dating again. And I was like, that's interesting, just the timing of it all. But, maybe he just felt like with me being the youngest out of his two kids and me, moving out and getting settled and kind of moving into that next stage of my life, he was like, okay, like, I parented. I did the parent thing. I got her where she needed to go, and now I can kind of focus back on me again. So I think that maybe played a bit as to why the timing of it was just interesting to me. Or it also could be that he just felt weird dating women with me in the house. I don't know. It's none of my business, but I just find it funny. And so he was dating this lady. Never met her, but he would tell me all about it, and we would talk pretty consistently, like I think once a week or at least like every day on my drive home from work type of thing. Like we were talking pretty regularly. My dad has a mustache, and his mustache has been like a staple on his face like forever, basically. Like I've never known my dad with not having a mustache. Like that's the type of like, that's just his thing. He always has a mustache. I remember us having a conversation where his girlfriend at the time was talking about like, would he ever shave his mustache? And he was like, no, this mustache is older than both of my kids combined. And like, they've never not seen me without a mustache. And it's like, it was like this big deal. I got a text message stating that he had shaved it off. And I was like, well, that's interesting. So when I called him that same day, he picks up the phone and I just tell him, oh, I heard you shaved your mustache. And he starts laughing because it's funny that the news had already gotten to me. We were talking and we were chatting and she happened to be there and the phone was on speaker. Granted, I'm definitely a person to let know, hey, you're on speaker, because I have a filter, but like if I'm really comfortable with you, then the filter gets really loose. Kind of just, I say what's off, like things off the cuff all the time. So I didn't say anything bad. I wasn't like bad mouthing her because I didn't know her. I had nothing bad to say about her, but I don't think I was even like talking about her or what. But I just found it interesting that he had shaved his mustache. He looked weird. I'm not gonna lie. He had went bald one time, not because he's losing his hair, because we have great hair in this family, especially on my dad's side of the family. Like everybody pretty much has a full head of hair. So he wasn't going bald, but he was giving himself a haircut at home. and he didn't put the guard on top of the buzzer, and so he went to like trim like the back of his head or something, and so there wasn't any guard, so he just took all of his hair off. And he goes, okay, well, there's only one way to fix this. So he just shaved his whole head, and he was bald for a little bit, and that was weird. Yeah, seeing my dad, he still has his mustache though, but seeing my dad with no hair, that was interesting. Never again. But seeing him without his mustache was probably even weirder because it's just like my dad's thing. Kind of after that conversation, him and that lady or that woman just kind of started getting rocky and stuff, and they eventually broke up. I had thought that he had blamed me for why that relationship didn't work, even though nothing I said during that one conversation was false. And some of the things that we were bringing up were things that maybe people who have been dating like 6 to 8 months shouldn't really be talking about, but maybe it's different when you're kind of older in life. But either way, like, I don't know. I just felt like he blamed me, and then we kind of not got distant, but like we weren't talking as regularly as we were, mainly because my schedule had changed, and so like there wasn't really a time where I could just like call my dad. Then I also had the second wave of trauma hit me and have a bunch of realizations with all of that. And so then I had a lot of unpacked feelings towards him, not because he did anything wrong, because he didn't. None of the trauma that I faced throughout my life and in that house was my dad's fault. He didn't know about his ex-wife and what she was saying to me, and he most likely doesn't know what his son has done and what a couple other people that we know have done. So it wasn't like he was aware that it was happening and just let it kept happening, because knowing my dad like I do, and he's very protective of me, if he did know, he would have done something about it. So I know that my dad's not to blame for any of what happened to me, but there's just that fundamental, like, I guess like dad and daughter type of understanding where it's, I'm your dad, I'm going to protect you from everything. And as the daughter, I was like, you didn't do it. He didn't know. So like I said, it was a battle in my head and a struggle to kind of really unpack it and understand it and figure out why I was having these feelings of resentment towards him. Because I'm like, fundamentally, he's my dad, and he's supposed to protect me from everything that could go wrong and cause me harm. And the little kid inside me was like, he didn't do that. But the adult was like, yes, but he also didn't know. He didn't know what was happening, and he couldn't stop what he didn't know. So I really had to fight myself and make myself understand that, yes, my dad will always protect me. And yes, he, didn't do that in the sense of these particular situations, but he also, he didn't know, and he didn't cause it. And it wasn't like he was intentionally putting me in uncomfortable situations because he wanted me to be in them. He didn't know any better. And again, it was just me having to remind myself my dad is also human. And my dad isn't fully aware of everything that goes on around him. Just like I'm not fully aware of what everything goes around me. Like my husband, perfect example, when me and my husband were moving me up from where I used to live with my dad to where we lived at the time, we had stopped by some gas station in some state. I can't really remember. But it had like a grocery store, convenience store type thing attached to the gas station. So I was like, cool, I have to go to the bathroom. We need to let the dog out. And like, I'll get us some snacks. So I run in, do all that stuff. And then as I'm coming out, unbeknownst to me, because one, I couldn't see it. It was on the other side of the building than where I was. But during the time of me going into the store and doing my business and coming out, a cop had pulled up and was talking to some guy in his car on the other side of the building where my husband could see what was happening. And then it was kind of, situation was kind of escalating. So the cop had like drawn his gun. It was like, get out of the car. And like, you know, things were slowly kind of progressing. And cue me walking out of the store, seeing my husband, and he's going like this, like, come here. I didn't have glasses at the time, so to me, it looked like he was doing this, like he was waving at me. So I just go, oh, hi, babe. And he's like, get over here. Like, no. So that's like our running joke of I just don't pay attention. But in my defense, I couldn't see what was happening. So I didn't know. But kind of the same thing. Certain things, like, you don't pick up what's happening around you because it's not directly affecting you or involving you, so you just don't pick up on it. And so that was really kind of what I had to come to terms with in regards to my relationship with my dad. Was like, yeah, I could, you know, try and hold on to these feelings of resentment because, you know, he didn't do the job that he was supposed to do. But at the end of the day, he didn't know what was happening, and he wasn't the one doing any of the trauma. Like, he wasn't the one doing the actions, if that makes any sense. So that, me working through those feelings and really kind of figuring out where I wanted my relationship with my dad to go, because we were still talking and we would still like catch up and like, oh, I just called, I want to see how you're doing, and because I haven't talked to you in a while. Like, we were still having those conversations, but it wasn't happening as frequently as it was before. And by this point, he was already in a new relationship, and I think most likely I had met her because they had came up when my husband proposed to me, and they were like my extra special surprise, along with one of my cousins that I haven't seen in a while, which was great. Eventually, me and my dad ended up having a conversation, and I told him like how I was feeling mainly about his previous relationship after the one when he first started dating after the divorce, how I kind of felt like he blamed me. And he was like, I don't think it was your fault at all, and I'm sorry that you felt like it was, and that I, you know, felt that way towards you, because it's not. And so we were able to unpack all of that, and he still doesn't know that I had feelings of resentment towards him because he doesn't know about the second wave of trauma. He knows I don't fuck with his son, period, but he doesn't necessarily know why. At least I haven't told him, and if somebody else has told him, then that's on them. But it's just not a conversation that I feel like needs to be had, in my opinion. And I've had this conversation with a couple of people in my life, like, you should tell your dad about like what happened to you as a child. And I've gone back and forth about it, and I've kind of settled on why. Like, it's not going to change anything. It's not going to go back and fix the past and make it so like it never happened. I don't need him feeling guilty over things that he didn't even know was happening and it wasn't his fault. And, you know, like, it's just going to cause a chaos grenade that doesn't need to happen, in my opinion. So I'm sure maybe one day eventually that conversation will be had with my dad, but I don't think it's like keeping me from doing anything. You know, I've moved on from that trauma, and I've moved on, well, not fully, because I'm still even dealing with some shit from his ex-wife. But that I've been really working on, and I've been really trying to put that to bed once and for all. So, slow progress, but progress is progress, and all victories should be celebrated. So, like, for the most part, I'm working through that second wave of trauma, and I don't feel like he needs to be a part of that. And nobody really needs to be a part of it because it's my own trauma. And I mean, I feel like the most person that's involved in it, aside from myself, is my husband and probably also my girlfriend because they just know everything about me. But we also had to have, I don't want to say a difficult conversation, but it was definitely a conversation I knew was eventually going to happen. I know I've talked about it on the podcast before, but to just give a quick recap from then to now, I was having a conversation with my dad, and his son had popped in and threw out, like, "and I love you" towards me. And at the time, I was like, I'm not saying things that I don't mean to people that I don't care about. So I didn't respond, and I just stayed quiet. And my dad went, "Did you hear him?" And I go, "Yup." And my dad goes, "Well, okay then." And then just we ended the call. Not because like he didn't know how to take it, but the call was ending naturally anyway. So it was just like, "Okay, well, I'll talk to you tomorrow." And that was the end of it. I was like, okay, he knows I'm not interested in talking to his son anymore. But my dad, being ever the non confrontational person and non combative person, he's like, "This doesn't involve me. I'm not getting in the middle of it." Which, respect, totally get it, appreciate it. But I knew at some point another conversation revolving that was going to come up. And it did a couple months ago because me and him were talking, and I knew his son's birthday was coming up, and we were even talking about the party that he was going to throw him and like all this stuff. And my dad was like, "Can you do me a favor?" I said, "What's up?" He goes, "Can you please send," he said your brother, but "can you send him a text message on his birthday and just wish him a happy birthday?" And I said, "I'm going to be honest with you, Dad. I'm not going to do that." And my dad responded, "Yeah, I kind of figured that was going to be the answer, but I just wanted to ask anyway." Because his son had made some comment about, "I guess I'm not going to hear from my sister on my birthday again." And my dad wanting everybody to get along because that's just who he is. And so he wanted to see if that could happen. And I'm not in the business of living my life for other people anymore. So I was like, "Yeah, I'm sure he would like to hear from me, but I don't want to talk to him. So I'm not going to do something that I'm not comfortable with and I'm not about because somebody else wants me to. Because it just doesn't feel right." And so my dad understood, and we ended up talking some more about it. And he was just like, "I thought that eventually you guys would have, a good relationship and that you'd be able to kind of, become friends and, do all this stuff." And I go, "Yeah, I get that. And I understand, like, that he's your son and you want certain things to happen between your two kids. But that relationship had got fractured a long time ago. And I don't think there's any way to come back from that. Because from my point of view, there's not. I'm not interested in it. It's been proven my life is better without certain people in it. So they're not adding any value to my life. They're not benefiting me in any way. They're not doing anything for me that's in a positive way. So why the fuck do I need them? The answer is you don't. You don't fucking need them. And I've come to those realizations, and I'm like, I don't need that. I never really had a brother growing up, just like I never had a mom growing up. So I don't know what relationships I'm missing, and frankly, I'm fine with that. I have the most amazing relationship I have with my dad, and that's all I really need coming out of that house. I just needed him. Because we were always just, thick as thieves. We joke around, we have fun, we give each other shit. It's just, I got him into hockey too, so we're fucking talking hockey. It's great. He was a diehard football person, and I was like, "You should watch this sport." Actually, I wasn't even like that at all. How I got my dad into hockey was I had just come home, and I knew that we had a game on. So I came home from class, and I was like, "Hey, can I put my hockey game on?" And my dad goes, It's football, college football championship game that's going on right now. And I'm like, well, you didn't answer my question. Can I put the game on? Because he could have said no, and I was fine with these. If he said no, all I was gonna do was put it on my phone and watch it on my phone. And so I was like, well, can I put my game on? He goes, but it's a championship. I go, can I put my game on? And he just goes, okay, yeah, sure. So then I turned it to my hockey game. And I started watching it, and then he kind of got into it. I was like, oh, well, what's happening? So then I explained it to him, and then he kind of started liking it. And then I think he'd been to hockey games before, but it wasn't a super common thing. And then we were having a game on my birthday, and I wasn't doing anything for my birthday that year. So I was like, hey, Dad, like, can we go to a hockey game? So we got fucking nosebleed tickets. Like, literally, I was touching the back of the stadium with my hand. But had a fucking great time. Someone on our team got a fucking hat trick. We won the game. It was a totally great birthday. And we went out to dinner beforehand. My dad is like, I'm not paying for dinner. And I said, no big deal. I'll pay for dinner. And this could be your birthday dinner type of thing. Because our birthdays are so close. Like, we had a great time. And now he's invested into hockey. So he knows, like, what we're dealing with in the playoffs. And, like, what, we're having to do. So anytime we're talking and and it's game day, he's like, let's go, boys. I'm like, that's what I'm saying. We're going to watch this game together. So I only just needed my dad. And I understood why he was asking that of me, but I also really respected that he let me just stand where I was and meet me where I was, because I wasn't budging. And I even told him, I was like, I just don't want that to affect our relationship. And he goes, it's not. And he goes, nothing could ever happen that's going to affect mine and yours relationship. He goes, we're rock solid. And I was like, okay. And so I think that kind of really cemented it for both of us. Like, yeah, things had happened with everybody else in the family, but it's not going to affect me and him. And I really appreciated that conversation with him. And I think at some level, I needed to hear him say that to me, and I needed to have him tell that to me, because it really settled a lot of uneasiness that I was having about, because I knew at some level me and his son not talking and not having a relationship was gonna trickle out some way into the rest of the family. But I really didn't want it to affect me and my dad's relationship, because me and him have always just been so close, and he's such a big support system for me. Like, even now that we're living in different states, he's still such a big supporter of me, and he is just my rock on some days where I'm just dealing with a lot of shit. Like, when we lost our jobs, I was nervous telling my dad, not because I got fired, but, well, kind of, but because I was the one that got fired for just running my mouth. And I had joked with my husband, because my husband didn't want to tell my dad either. And I was like, look, if he's going to be upset with anybody and anybody's going to get a lecture for why we got fired, it's going to be me. Because I got fired for some stupid shit that I could have avoided. And I even told my dad that, and he was like, no, I'm not going to give you a lecture. Like, it sucks, and I hate that you're going through this, but, like, I'm not going to give you a lecture. And he goes, you were probably justified in everything that you were saying. I was like, I fucking was. So then we really started talking every day. So we went from talking once a day or like once a week, I should say. It wasn't once a day. Started talking once a day to we were talking every day. So he started calling me on his way home from work every single day just to check up on me and see how I was doing, because my dad understands me and knows when I get put in very specific situations, it raises a lot of uneasy feelings for me. And since I don't get put in those situations often, it's kind of not hard for me to deal with it, but it's just a bit difficult because I'm not used to doing it all the time.
So my dad just wanted to remind me he's there for me. And if he was like, if you ever need to talk, no matter what time it is, I will answer the phone and I will talk to you. And I was like, okay, I appreciate that. Because my dad is someone that I can depend on. And I love that. I remember when I think before I started going to therapy, or even maybe after, it was definitely probably both instances. But there would be times where I would just be awake at like 2, 3 o'clock in the morning, can't sleep because my mind is just running a million miles a minute and a bunch of different things are getting said at me and I just can't deal with it. That I would just walk up to my dad's room and I would wake him up and I'm like, hey dad, can we talk? And he was like, yeah, sure. And he would wake up and I would just sit on his bed and we didn't turn on any lights or anything. And we just would talk for an hour or two and he would just kind of let me vent about stuff and get things out there and talk about my feelings. And he would give me his perspective and kind of what he thinks about it and, a different advice that he thought I needed to hear. And I'd always feel bad because sometimes he had work the next day and I would apologize. Like, I'm like, sorry, I woke you up for work. He goes, you don't have to apologize for anything. He goes, I told you if you needed to talk to me, to talk to me. And you did that. So why would you need to apologize, think that I'm upset with you? That's also was also such a reassuring thing to hear. And thankfully, when we got fired, I didn't have to call him at 2 o'clock in the morning because I was able to just vent to my husband about some things that were happening. But we then just got on the schedule of, okay, I'm talking to my dad every day. So every day during the week, me and my dad still talk. And that reminds me of his relationship with his dad, which is my grandpa. And they used to talk every single day. My dad would call my grandpa on his lunch break, and they would talk for an hour like every single day. And my grandpa was also a very solid support system for my dad when he was alive. And also for me, he was, my biggest supporter with schooling and stuff. Like, he really wanted to see another grandkid graduate, and I was the youngest. And I was like, okay, I'll do it. And he was such a big supporter of my schooling, and he always wanted to hear how I was doing and if he could help with anything at all, to just let him know. So it's nice to see that it wasn't just a once or like a certain generational type of thing, that even now, like, me and my dad are still very close, just like him and his dad were very close. And that's something that I appreciate and I'm forever grateful for, because my dad is one of the first people that I could really trust and know that I could depend on them no matter what. And if he ever listens to this, I love you, Dad, and thank you for everything. And if not, still doesn't change anything. I still love my dad, and I thank him for everything that he does for me, and he continues to do for me. And just, he was a great parent growing up. And although he has his faults, as we all do, because I know I have my faults, I wasn't the best kid. I mean, I was. Out of his two options, I was definitely the better kid. But I know I wasn't perfect. I have my own faults. I have definitely had some instances where my dad was pissed at me because I procrastinated too much, or I wasn't doing things that I was supposed to be doing, like, kid shit. But we've never lost that closeness and just that foundation of our relationship, which I think is great. Yeah, I just really wanted to talk about my dad this month. So, probably because we both just had our birthdays. So, he's just hot on my mind all the time. Maybe not all the time, but yeah, if you have great relationships with your dads, maybe even your moms, any kind of parental figure, let me know. And what things have you noticed throughout, your relationship with them, and how things have changed and what you kind of had to deal with? Like, when did you realize that your parent was a person? At what age? What made you have that realization? Let me know below. If you enjoyed this episode, please like it, rate it 5 stars, leave a comment. If you aren't already, subscribe to the podcast and tune in every month on the 28th for a new episode. If you want to support the podcast in absolutely any way, I do have a Patreon that you can find in the link in the description below. I do need to start doing more random rants. I know I've been slacking on them, but again, nothing's really been popping up that makes me want to just rant. But those will be a Patreon exclusive, except for the first one that's on YouTube right now. You can follow the podcast on social media. It is Bitch Bet Podcast, all one word with an I instead of an exclamation point. And as always, all the negative voices in your head, bitch bet, and I will see you guys next month. See you later.